how then does the history of cities in Africa get back to the question of gold? Well, the easiest and the most accessible way to think about gold in Africa is by looking at the artifacts that were created not just with gold, but with other metals. So our ancestors did not discriminate between gold and other metals. So again, it shows the genius of Africa, that you can find artifacts made with every kind of material. So Benin City, for example, which the British ransacked when they were destroying it, is the home of some of the most beautiful brass panels ever created in the world. So the kings of Benin City would essentially tell the story of the kingdom with these brass panels, which look almost like paintings, but just done in solid brass. And if you travel to a place like Ethiopia, you see also similar kinds of artworks, but this time done with color, where the Ethiopians used to paint themselves in battle, paint stories from the Bible, because obviously they had converted to Christianity. And the most beautiful part about Ethiopian art is that everyone there in the art is black. So even the angels are black, God is black, Jesus is black, Mary is black. And then obviously, I mean, I don't want to leave Egypt out of the story, but the reason why I don't talk about Egypt as much is exactly because there's so much that has been done. So Egypt is kind of the national geographic topic for Africa. And that sort of comes at the cost of other parts of the African continent. And as I say, it gives the impression that only the Egyptians actually ever achieved a level of civilization that is comparable with the Western world. And that is a false impression, precisely because if you look at, for example, Mapungubwe, which is in our region, the rhinoceros that everyone knows, that they have seen, that image of Mapungubwe, is actually not the only item that was excavated from the site. At Mapungubwe, people were making gold beads, tiny, tiny gold beads that then they were stringing together to make bangles and other jewelry. They were making nails that are literally smaller than your nail clippings. So when you are clipping your nails and you get that clipping, the nails that they were making with gold are smaller than that. So they were using these nails to put together some of the artifacts that they were creating. So the Mapungubwe rhinoceros is not the only gold item that was excavated. There's a whole treasure trove of gold items that were excavated at this site, which shows that this was not an accident. So the most important part about the lesson that we learn from gold artifacts and brass artifacts that have survived from pre-colonial Africa is that this was not an accident. Neither was it a kind of external influence, because one of the most common theories that used to be offered when people would find these artifacts, the theory was this could not have been produced by Africans. And one of the most bizarre things is that people would even resort to explaining these artifacts by saying extraterrestrials came to Africa and taught Africans how to do this. So in history, the only time that extraterrestrials come to Earth to teach anything is when it comes to Africans. Everyone else just has bizarre dreams and gets transported to other realms. But with Africans, it's always like, oh, they couldn't have made this. They must have learned it from extraterrestrials. And this is actually, you could even Google some of these arguments that have been made. So when people found Great Zimbabwe, they used to even go as far as saying that these Arabs came from the Middle East and taught Africans how to build without mortar. So Great Zimbabwe, one of the beauties of Great Zimbabwe is that all those walls are still standing, despite the fact that they were not glued together with mortar. It's just rock upon rock upon rock upon rock. There's no cement that is gluing the rocks together. So those huge walls still stand despite the fact that they were not glued together. And for many people, that was evidence that, well, it must be an outsider who came to Africa to show the Africans how to do this. So this is one of the reasons, or some of the reasons why the history of African urbanism has been underread, underwritten, and also misunderstood.